Hey y'all, anybody? Craig here. And I want to talk about the golden rule today for a second and why it's messing up so many of the relationships today. How many conversations have you had with your friends, if you're a woman, where you're like, my guy he's so intelligent, he's so deeply conscious, and he has absolutely no idea how it is that I work. Like, where did the fire go? Where did the spark go? Like, he's such a good man and he tries so hard and just disconnecting. So the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right. What's the problem there? Well, it works really well, except when you're in an intimate relationship, because when you're in your intimate relationship, you've got two individuals who are polar opposite, who are retracting each other. So you basically got a unicorn and a chimpanzee. And the chimpanzee doesn't want somebody over here treating him like a unicorn, and vice versa. Follow that through. So let's change the golden rule. I just read it this morning by Christopher Voss, who's an FBI negotiator, and they were FBI, and they were realizing that many of the hostages were getting killed. They were losing the negotiations when they were logically and rationally trying to dialogue with the whoever it is, whatever the guy is that's called, the guy that was holding the hostages, because it's a chaotic, animal, emotionally charged crisis moment. Many of the most intense and memorable experiences maybe you've had. Oh, I wonder if this Instagram, I'm actually on YouTube. If you're on the Instagram and you can't hear it, I've just tried this new setup, and the microphone is sitting behind the computer. That, and I got the Air Force jets going by too. So if you can't hear me, you can come down to YouTube and watch this. I'm doing it live here also. So the YouTube Craig Walker channel is just a picture of me with like a t-shirt going like this without the beard. So that's how you find me. Okay. And I'll change that up, but not while we're live. Okay. So Christopher Voss, what they realized was that golden rule was shooting them in the foot. You don't want to be treated. Oh, there's the garbage guys already. Perfect timing. They don't want to be treated. You don't want to be treated like you want to be treated yourself. See, let's start that one over again. The golden rule, as he rewrote it, went something like this: don't do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but do unto others as they would have you do unto them. What's the difference? It's our job to learn how you're wired, how you move energy, and how you move emotion. So I think I was starting out to say a second ago, some of the most memorable, just heart-opening, gut-churning memories, events, situations that you can remember with your significant, intimate other didn't have a damn thing to do with being rational or being logical. It had everything to do with being animal, being emotional, being irrational, and dancing in the chaotic edge of reality. Okay, so that requires a different skill set from, I'm not going to say the guy, because it's each of us is split, right? We've got the half that is emotional or not emotional, but rational and logical, and gets stuff done together throughout the day. And then the other half of us is animal. Like, this is animal, and this is what drives the show. Like, my first impression of you when I meet you is going to be an emotional hit, not a logical hit. The emotion comes up, it's like yes or no. And then the second part of us that thinks catches on a little bit later. And that's the part up here, that kind of logical and rational, that tells a story to support what this and this told me about the first impression. So the take home there is there's a skill set that can be learned. The tools are already here. The tools are already here to actually navigate a situation with somebody who's loving being in the emotional, the irrational, the chaotic, the animal part of himself or herself. And you don't necessarily want to meet him or her there, have both of you flying in the chaotic, irrational, right? So you don't necessarily need to go there in yourself. And this is for those of you who are like, I'm not the feeling type, Craig. I don't really know emotions like my partner does. Like that's their kind of half of the story. That's doesn't, like, I'm logical. There's a reason why I'm an engineer. There's a reason why I play golf and I don't have a practice in sacred ritualistic dance. There's a reason why the sports that I like involve aiming, triangulating the whole world, and relaxing my consciousness into that world. And so that when then I look away from the hole, the golf hole that's 300 yards down the line, my body knows where it is. And then I can triangulate my whole body's behavior to send this little white thing towards the hole. It's a different skill set. That skill set, when actually aimed towards the half of your intimate partnership that is living this emotionally fluid, chaotic, irrational experience, there's a way to meet that experience and show up in presence as trustworthy, as conscious, as solid. And it doesn't include rational, logical dialogue. Certainly doesn't invite the being right. There's the way to use that consciousness, that focus, to have that person feel met. And you know what it looks like when you actually feel met on a deep emotional level. And this is what Christopher Voss talks about in many of his YouTube videos and his book. It was one thing that he observes, or what they realized was, if you can get the other person to say, that's right. Like when you're dialoguing with them, if you can get them to say, that's right, the whole dynamic of the interaction changes, because there's something in us that emotionally switches right as we're saying, that's right, that feels met, feels seen, and we feel recognized. And if that's the case, like if we're actually coming from there, the need to win, like you've already gotten much of what your human needs to feel satisfied with the interaction. So there are tools that you have in this human body of yours that, when you use them, and a lot of it involves where your actual structure is, your spine is in relation to the vertical, and how much you're paying attention to a couple different spots in there while you're engaging with somebody else, right? So you can be aware and logical and rational and tracking the animal, so that you can establish that bond, establish the connection, establish the rapport, and establish the trust, to have the person that's receiving you have that internal, that's right. And if you're not aware of which parts in your body, I'm going back and forth between the two cameras, which parts in your body you're attending to while it is that you're engaging, whether it's in conversation or in sex, you are cutting off the potential of that interaction. And I think I've made other ones on here where I'm talking about where the head is relative to the midsection, relative to the low back. And this is stuff that you can play with all on your own. If you want to get good at it, you can play with it all on your own. And let's see. Well, what I'm in the process of doing is putting together this masterclass so that it'll be live. And then if you don't catch it live, you can catch a replay, but you can catch some of the dialogue, and so that you can really see with your own eyes what it is that I'm talking about, and take that away and take that back to the boardroom, the bedroom, the kitchen, your parenting, and play with this basically black belt empathy, this tactical empathy. Tactical because you want to know what it is that you're specifically doing, or you have your significant other that's not meeting you. And you don't want to be telling them like they've got to get all deep and emotional, because that may not be how they're wired. That may be your role. But you want them, him or her, whoever it is that's playing that focused half of the relationship, to know they don't need to become deeply feeling and deeply emotional to be able to deeply connect with you. But there's some very specific practices that you can do, that he can do, that she can do, that can establish safety and that rapport. And then you watch trust come up. We're naturally trusting, right? If you're present, you're just naturally trusting. You don't have to like withhold your trust and then give it. Like, we're just naturally trusting. But when somebody actually connects with you on that level that's actually naturally trusting, it basically puts a highlight of almost a spotlight or a flashlight, a mirror back to that part of you that is trusting, and it just opens, and you get to actually experience the sensation, the animal sensation, the irrational emotional sensation of trust and connection and inclusion. Because what we don't want is to be living forever in the hell of isolation, especially if it's in your relationship. That isolation where you've got a couple people living together and there's just so much resistance. So you're actually separate in that togetherness. Okay. If you recognize you've got some of these issues, you've got questions, like throw a shout out, maybe what your specific challenge has been, put them in the comments, and I'll read through them. And if there's something that, I didn't touch on here, then I'll hop back on and we'll address it. And let's see, pop this up here. Okay. Y'all have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how this thing's working. Am I sure I want to end? Yes, sir.